HR or HRD. Why that particular topic I term it as simple is because of this, which I'm about to show it to you all. So let me know once you're able to see my screen.
Cat.
Is
Hi
it visible?
everyone. Good evening. Yes.
Hey, Kathy.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see
So
the
is my
screen.
screen visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
visible. Yeah.
So look at this. Now there is some problem with respect to my presentation mode. I don't know whether you are able to see in presentation mode or otherwise.
If you can click on this button, slideshow. Yeah,
Is it happening?
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
So what I'll request everyone is look at this image and tell me what exactly do you see?
I see a young lady.
Young girl.
I see a young lady looking the other side.
Okay.
I can see an old woman as well as a young lady. That's a perception,
Both.
maybe for me. Both.
Superb.
It is a
So,
picture of my wife and her mother-in-law something.
okay. Who's this? Babita.
Meenal.
Yeah, I have used this picture for my trainings with students. So it is
Superb. What about others? The ones who are able to see this image.
It also feels like a bird.
There is
For me, it
picture of
looks
a
like
young
an
lady
eagle.
looking at the other
It looks
side
like an
with
eagle
another
picture from the other side.
on her forehead.
Okay.
It's a
Anybody who is
lady.
not able
Yeah.
to visualize anything in this image?
No, I'm able to visualize. It's like a girl is looking at the right end, but for some reason her shoulder looks like wings of an eagle.
Okay.
Mm.
Good observation.
Even I see the
Anybody
same.
else who would like to try?
Yeah, I see the girl, and the eagle is actually at the back of the girl. Yeah.
And an old
Okay.
lady wearing probably carrying a shawl
Fur
types.
coat, fur coat.
Fur coat types, yeah.
Correct.
बहुत बढ़िया.
So
Yes,
everybody is
a girl or an old lady, I can see here. Yes.
very nice.
Frankly speaking, what I see is a witch. And then when I think one of our colleagues said, I see a mother-in-law, I don't know whether I should relate that to a witch.
What a joke.
So all of you all are correct. Now, if you look at this particular image, this is more like optical illusion.
Yeah.
So depending on the way you see it and the focus that you have, you'll be able to see technically two images. So there is no animal in this particular image. There are two images hidden within the same image. So you can see there is a feather at the top, right? And then there is a black portion, which is basically the hair. And the young lady, if you have to see in this image, you'll be able to see the jawline and a little bit of nose tip. And you can also see eyelashes. And the person is trying to see in the opposite direction. However, the same thing, if you see the jawline that you are able to see, that essentially also reflects nose of the elderly woman. I hope people are able to see this, right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to highlight out here is this essentially talks about perception, how we try and essentially perceive things depending on how we try to understand what's happening around. Strategy also happens to be in a similar way. It's very straightforward. What we are able to see as an individual, as against what we need to see in and around it, that essentially will help you understand what the strategy could be. I'll give you an example. If you're driving on the road and if it's a straight road, we are able to see way ahead, right? Unless it's like Delhi situation wherein during the winter season it's very foggy, you're not able to see even when your fog lights are turned on. तो आपको दिखाई नहीं देता. In that case, what happens is your strategy would be to turn on your hazardous lights. अगर blinkers है, you'll turn it on. You'll drive slowly. Agree? So automatically you start thinking the moment you don't have the clarity, you don't have the vision. Similarly, in each of our departments, when we work, the work, day to day work that we do, there is clarity to a greater extent. So we are able to think through. But the moment somebody asks you to develop a strategy or devise a strategy or come up with a strategy, essentially what they're trying to tell us is focus on those things that you're not able to see around. Hi, what's your name? आपका नाम क्या है?
जोर से बोलो. Bhumanyu.
Umanyu, good to see you. I'm totally blessed. This is the first time that too in a subject like strategy we have such a young audience.
ये हर सेशन में होता है हमारे.
अच्छा,
वो अभी
very
से
nice.
स्ट्रैटेजी पढ़ेगा तो डन, आपका लाइफ सेट हो गया.
Totally. So good to see you. So I was talking about at workplace, when we have the clarity, there is no problem. But for those things wherein we don't have clarity, that's when the challenge arises. And strategy is something similar. So it totally depends on us how we want to have the approach. Now, with regards to our subject, the first chapter, which is role of HR in business strategy, it's a very straightforward chapter. But what I felt is I've gone through all the pages, just glanced through it. Of all the chapters, this is the most fundamental and the most basic one in terms of conceptual understanding. And probably that's the reason why it is added as the first chapter. So if we are able to understand this first chapter, all the other chapters are going to be much simpler. So to begin with, we'll understand as per the module objective of this particular first chapter, the introduction part, which I've already briefed you all, role of HR in business strategy, why only HR, role of training in business strategy, again, which is a subset of training, what CEOs, line managers, and employees expect from HR and training department. We'll also talk about role of HR in meeting expectations, how well we are able to meet the expectations, and changing role of HR because times are changing, right? Times are evolving, and HR as a business partner. So these are the 7 objectives in this particular chapter. We'll also focus on the questions which are there towards the end of this particular chapter. So the first question out here for everyone is think about what are the various activities which HR department has? What are the different roles? One word each. Let's not describe what exactly it is, but what are the different activities which happen within the HR domain. All of us, we are trainers, we are L&D folks, we are facilitators, no matter what term we use, but we are part of, let's say, L&D. So that is one of the sub department. What else? What else?
HR
Because the
operations.
answer, yes, Kaushik.
Hiring.
HR operations.
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition, correct.
Compensation benefits.
Comp and benefit, correct. Third point.
Employee relation.
Employee
Employee
engagement.
relations.
Onboarding.
HRIS.
Onboarding. HRIS. So HRIS,
Engagement.
Performance
HRIS
management.
became significant in the last 6 to 10 years.
Performance
else?
management.
Performance
Performance
management.
management, PMS system, correct.
Employee retention.
Talent
Succession
Employee
planning.
retention,
Management. Talent
Talent
management.
management.
talent
Talent
management,
risk
correct.
relations.
Talent management, yes.
Correct. What else? What else?
Talent transformation.
Talent
Talent risk
transformation, correct.
relations.
Career development, succession planning,
Yes,
Conflict
succession.
management. Conflict management.
correct.
Again, using psychometric test, which is not a part of HR, but HR, kind of assist in it, assist in that process, basically.
Right. So again, that would be a subset of screening and other things that we do as part of talent acquisition. Also, in the recent time period, in the last 6-7 years time period, attrition is also an important parameter. In certain companies, they hire people who are specialized to retain the talent. In a way, they're trying to retain people who are leaving. So in a way, it's attrition. In the last 5-6 years time period, some companies are hiring people as people officers, apart from the CHRO. Now, the job of this particular people officer would be to do anything and everything which these departments are not able to do, or along with that, try and ensure that people stay within the organization. Something that is like a above role, top role for people to be there within the company. Some companies have a role called as chief people officer. Under that, there would be a person who would be looking after ensuring that the culture of the company is very good. Culture officer also, chief culture officer, or whatever terminology they might use. So the point is, over the years, HR domain has modified itself in a much more bigger way, because with changing times, there are specific requirements in terms of how people need to be addressed as compared to the way it used to happen in the back good old days. So in this particular chapter, first one, we do have a component wherein पहले क्या होता था, how it was in the earlier days, how it is now. We are also going to touch upon that. Now, the reason why I asked you all what are the various sub departments within HR is if we have the clarity about various domains, various departments within HR, essentially when we talk about strategy along with HR department, everything is going to get in sync with the business. So if I have to ask you a third example, if you're planning to buy a car, doesn't matter what the price is. Let's say you have a lot of budget. Money is not a problem. Which car would you like to buy? Kaushal?
I would like to buy Urus.
Okay. Raghavendra?
We'll go for BMW.
Okay. Bharat?
Same choice, BMW.
Meenal? Money is not a problem. Money is not a problem. जितना चाहिए उतना है पैसा आपके पास. कौन सी buy करोगे? Meenal, what about you?
Not given a thought. A Porsche would be.
Okay,
Porsche.
very nice.
Mercedes.
Mercedes, okay, okay. Now,
Volvo.
tell me, anybody else who would like to answer?
Volvo.
Volvo, okay, nice, nice. Now, my
Jaguar.
second condition is you have budget of 10 lakh rupees. You have limited resource. You have budget of 10 lakh rupees. Which one you'll buy now? As against
Wag-
what you said earlier, wherein there was a
Wagoner.
lot of money.
Wagoner.
NG
Tata.
Astor.
Tata Punch.
Wagoner.
Okay,
Astor.
Wagon. Wagoner, Alto. I mean, these are the good cars, the best cars, best
वैसे
selling
वैसे मैं
cars.
आप लोगों को बता दूं, वैगनार इस टाइम पे 8.5 लाख रुपए की ऑन रोड.
Yeah,
वैगनार
yeah.
जैसी गाड़ी.
The newest model, na? Newest model, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the question is, the reason why I asked you all this example is when we have unlimited resources, our opportunities, choices, decisions again go in whatever directions we would like to take them to. But when we have limited resources, that's where we have to really think about, right? So strategy is also about how we think, why we think, what we think, and when we have to think about it. So in companies, in all our companies, resources are always limited. Resources are never in abundance. Even if it might be in abundance, but the way the management, the entrepreneur, the person who started the company, founder, and the top people, the way they are going to look at it is always from a limited perspective, irrespective of how deep they have the pockets. And that's where they have to strategize. Now, why they need to strategize? For two important things. Business is business. Business is not meant for charity. So when I say charity, what essentially it means is we are not there to, let's say, spend money in the market and not make money out of it. We are not there for that. Business essentially means if you are putting in, let's say, 100 rupees, at least you should get a return which is way above your break even point. ब्रेक इवन पॉइंट इज बेसिकली अगर आपने 100 रुपया खर्चा किया है, 100 रुपया के ऊपर आप जितना कमाओगे, तो जो थ्रेशोल्ड होगा आपका 100 रुपया खर्चा करने के बाद वापस 100 रुपया कमाने के लिए, एक बार आप 100 रुपया कमा लोगे तो यू आर मीटिंग योर ब्रेक इवन पॉइंट. उसके ऊपर जितना आपका पैसा ज्यादा बनेगा, minus the taxes, minus all the other things that you have to pay to the government, statutory bodies, everybody, essentially net आपके पास जो रहेगा that would be your profit, gross profit. उसमें से फिर net profit बन जाएगा आपका. That is more like a business approach. Now, when companies are spending money, they're not only spending on people, they're not only spending money on HR department, they're spending money on all the people, all the departments, the ones who are there within the company. अभी सब लोगों को साथ में लेके चलने के लिए जरूरी है, right? That's the reason we have so many departments within the company. So let's say if we talk about a manufacturing company, if we have a manufacturing company, there would be a production department, there would be HR department, there would be sales and marketing department, branding department.
So there's a lot of noise,
advertising
Amit. Sorry to interrupt. I think Netra, can you just mute it, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
So I
well,
was
my
saying,
bad. I was attending another call and I'm just trying to manage myself between both those. So really sorry for the didn't
So
address
who is
that.
this?
Thanks.
So the penalty for you is you have to treat all of us, okay?
All my attention is to this call.
Superb, superb. Thank you so much.
This
So
is
jokes
also
apart,
one
I
of the
was
training strategy, Amit, what you did right now.
sorry.
That is also one of the training strategy
Yeah.
And
that you applied.
please switch on your cameras.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, what's happening is I'm not able to figure out who is speaking. That's the reason I always tell people that if you turn on your cameras, at least I can see who is talking. So I couldn't hear. Somehow I felt it was Sadaf. I'm not very sure.
You recognize it, right?
Who is it?
Sadaf itself.
Sadaf itself. See, I could recognize you by your voice.
You have
So the point is,
great matter voice.
yeah. So moving on, I was saying in each and every company, every department is equally important. That's the reason we have so many departments, right? A company cannot really run unless it's like a proprietor company, wherein like there would be only one person who is the main person running everything, all the departments, all the cores of that particular business. But as the company grows, you require multiple departments. Now, each department essentially would be having a strategy that gets rolled on into the business strategy. Now, what the business strategy is, that would be trickling down to all the people within the company in the form of vision of the company. And that's the reason each and every company has a vision. So vision essentially is like a long-term activity which the company wants to achieve, long-term goal you can say. Vision would be for long-term. The way you achieve your plan of action, your strategy, your core strategy, that would be your mission. So mission is for short-term. Now, when we break down that mission into yearly periodical time periods, that automatically becomes a yearly KRAs, KPIs. Some companies use the term AOP, annual operating plan. आप समझ रहे हो? So when we trickle it down to topmost person till the junior most person who is eligible, each and every person would be having KRA KPIs that they need to work. तो इसका logic ये है, when it is mapped for everyone, everybody in a way is expected to be aligned. And when each and every individual achieves his or her KRA KPI, automatically it will translate to the team level. Team will further translate to the unit level. And all the units, when they do it, it will automatically align at the top business level. That's the thought process behind having any business strategy. Now, within the business strategy, we are going to talk about HR specific strategy. Now, as we have discussed earlier, there are multiple sub departments within HR. Traditionally, HR was known only from the perspective of talent acquisition. उस समय talent acquisition ये word था भी नहीं. People used to say HR generalist. बाद में फिर HR specialist आया because with time things started becoming more and more specific. तो लोग usually बोलते थे recruiter या recruitment देखता है, recruitment करती है, करता है and so on. But with changing time things are evolving. So how will HR support the business? One, in terms of people, but because there are people and wherever there are people, there are bound to be problems. Do you all agree? So wherever there are people, be it at home, जैसा किसी ने पहले बोला, mother-in-law and जो भी था, किसी ने witch बोला, I initially thought किसी ने B से कुछ तो बोला. So I was just trying to check.
हिंदी
So
में
I just
नहीं
कहावत
trying
यार,
to
है ना,
check
हिंदी में
what people
कहावत
are
है ना,
saying.
बर्तन है तो खड़े खड़केंगे जरूर।
Yeah.
तो where there
So
people are, तो वहाँ पे troubles भी रहेंगी।
right, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to hear you clearly. There is some problem at my end, I guess, but I'm not able to hear you clearly.
नहीं
So
वो
I was
खाना
saying,
खा रहे हैं,
मैं खाना खा रहा हूँ
हाँ,
भरत। तो
खाना भी
आपने
खा
कहा
रहे हैं।
कि जहाँ लोग रहेंगे वहाँ ट्रबल्स रहेंगी। सो इट इज लाइक कि जैसे हिंदी में कहावत है, बर्तन होंगे तो खड़केंगे जरूर।
बिल्कुल 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 और वो ऐसा होना भी चाहिए. At times it's also good. So the point that I'm trying to make out here is, of all the things which happen within the company in terms of generating the revenue or bringing in more business, essentially people are doing that, and it might happen through processes, systems, whatever infrastructure is there within the company. अभी इन सब लोगों को मैनेज करने के लिए you really need to have a strategy, because it's a dynamic world, right? Things are changing in the world at a global level. India में statutory wise, policy wise, company wise, generation wise, and the way people expect, as per their expectation wise, also things are changing. So in order to ensure something called as sustainability of business, Having a strategy always helps. And in the last 7 to 8 years time period, or let's say 10 years time period, if you really backtrack, you'll realize prior to that, HR never had a chance at management level in terms of being a equivalent partner in terms of representing themselves. But in the last 10, 12 years at the max, especially if we have to talk about India, this has been a changing landscape. अभी क्या हो रहा है to a greater extent as compared to the earlier times, top management, board members, they are giving a lot of importance to HR. And again, there are multiple reasons for it. The way things are changing, the way things are evolving, people are becoming more and more complex. And with the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials, all the types, categories that we have, expectations of people have evolved. And in order to ensure people are there within the company, you really need to have HR strategy. Now, what will HR strategy essentially will focus on? People. But as I mentioned earlier, as we discussed earlier, when we talk about HR, there are multiple domains, right? We spoke about L&D, Kaushal spoke about talent acquisition, somebody spoke about क्या था? I spoke about succession planning, somebody spoke about performance management system. So all these are integral processes within the company, but this is not the strategy. These are the operational parts within the HR domain. And that's the reason I showed you that first image on the first slide. So what you see is basically your work. So I'm part of L&D, you all are part of L&D. Somebody might be working in OD also, Organizational Development Department, talent acquisition. So the day-to-day tasks that we do, that's not the strategy. That's the operational part of our process. As simple as that. But if you want to plan how well you're able to utilize your manpower currently, or you want to plan manpower for the next year in order to cut down the cost because you anticipate global landscape is going to change. The best example is COVID. Prior to COVID, most companies, or rather all companies, had their employees working at their workplace. During COVID, most companies went online. Most of us, we were working from home. Some of us probably would have lost the job back then, unfortunately. But now, although things are normal, many companies, especially IT companies, they're not asking their employees to come to the workplace because they have saved a lot of money and people are more happy being at home. Although they might be cribbing, housewives might be cribbing because उनको अभी घर का बहुत सारा काम करना पड़ रहा है और उनके पतिदेव घर पे ही हैं, तो सुबह का नाश्ता हुआ, चाय हुआ, स्नैक्स हुआ, अभी क्या करेंगे क्या? So many companies are using that same model which they had during the COVID time period. Again, it is their current strategy to save cost. Because when you have a premises, when you have a facility, you have to do operational management of that particular facility, right? तो आपको जो cost होगा month on month basis, rent होगा, बाकी चीजें होगा, that you are able to save. While some companies, like you would have read the news about Tata, TCS, and other companies, they're calling their employees. The reason being, they're not able to manage their diversified workforce and they're not able to complete the projects which, as such, were hampered back then in the last 1.5 years time period. So they want to turn around that particular situation. But that's a separate thing. So, what I'm trying to tell you all is strategy starts at business level. That strategy will roll down to all the people in the form of KRS KPIs. Now, each function will have a head at that particular business. Year on year basis, each company would be having a vision, mission that they want to achieve. So, इस साल क्या हम लोग additional करने वाले हैं in terms of generating the revenue. But if you want to generate the revenue, not all departments are direct contributors to the revenue. I hope everybody is able to understand this. Sales, marketing team, they are the direct contributors depending on the industry that you're talking about. All the other departments, they are not direct contributors, but they help in contribution of generation of revenues. So this is where each business is aligned in terms of what essentially they are going to do in terms of their strategy so that the business is able to grow. So for HR, one of the main strategy would be in terms of talent acquisition. So I'll give you a best example. You would have heard about Navy SEALs. Have you heard about Navy SEALs?
Yes.
In India, we have Black Cat Commandos.
Yeah.
You would have heard about them.
Yes.
Topmost elite forces. Navy SEALs, they are with respect to US. India का काफी सारे हैं अपने यहाँ पे. तो one of them being Black Cat Commandos. NSG Commandos भी बोलते हैं हम लोग जो दिल्ली में हैं. वहाँ पे उनका headquarters है. Now, when we hire these people, their recruitment in a way in the armed forces, it's a very tough recruitment process that lasts across multiple days. So when they hire people, they are at the topmost level in terms of their physical abilities, mental abilities, all the other abilities, because they want people who are of certain pedigree. However, when it comes to corporate world, the way all of us we are working in different companies, the hirings never happen at the same level, because you remember the earlier point that I mentioned, resources are always limited. And because of limited resources, the problem is what you get within the company, you really need to turn around them in terms of how well you are able to utilize them. And that's where your talent development comes, L&D comes. So that is one of the important aspects which is mentioned in this chapter, why L&D or a training and development department is important for grooming of people in terms of ensuring that the work happens and continuity of work exists. So that is the second point. Third point is how HR is aligned to the business. तो जब हम लोग ने बात किया, when we hire people, we try to see, अच्छा, let me ask you all, some of you all probably would have done recruitment in your career at some phase, some of you all might be doing it. So when you hire people, what exactly you see in those individuals? What do you all see?
Attitude over skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Learning ability.
Okay.
Yes.
Behavior.
Behavior, correct.
Because skills can be developed, but attitude can't. So,
Okay.
attitude is important.
Correct.
Yeah.
At times
So
दोनों भी
we,
develop नहीं हो पाते हैं.
हाँ, वो भी है.
yeah,
But
we
again,
see whether,
but
yeah, we see,
again, yeah, please, question, go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
नहीं, अभी मैं भूल गई मैं क्या बोल रही थी. अब बोलो.
It is very important to see whether the person is trainable or not. Whether given an exposure, whether he would be able to move up the ladder at a later stage or not, whether he will be able to take up bigger roles in future or not. There are a lot of things which we, depending on the the position you are hiring.
Good one question. Who else? Who else? Somebody is watching TV also or what?
KBC.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to answer? Anybody else who would like to answer? So I'll give you the answer. When we hire people, whatever you all mentioned, that is correct, but it's always a 50-50 scenario, right? We're not very sure whether the candidate would be a good fit or the right fit. So we never try to see a candidate who is the exact of what we have. Some companies do that, some companies don't do that. Most companies, what they look at is what is our culture, whether the person would be able to survive in our culture. Academic wise, knowledge wise, the person might have so many other qualifications and let's say experience also, but it may not suffice for that person to survive in our company. So we also try to see what is the best fit or the right fit. So when we have these candidates internally within the company, the important thing is whether the person would be able to align with the company's culture. So alignment is very important. So in this particular first chapter, one of the important topic is consequences of low alignment of HR with business strategy. And since there is a component of low alignment, there's also another side which is high alignment. So whatever we have been discussing so far, I was trying to create a foundational understanding in terms of what HR is all about, what business is all about, and what is business strategy. And with that, what is the correlation of HR in terms of having a strategy. So when we talk about alignment, essentially the top will always align with all the top people. So if you want to grow in your life, I always tell it to people, if you want to grow in your life, if you are there at the, let's say, lowmost level, you should automatically align to the topmost person. So that pyramid should always go. The more you are aligned with your top management, depending on what your hierarchy could be currently, if you're aligned with the top people, your growth would be superb. So it has to be a pyramid, a triangle. But if you're going this way, you understand the inverted triangle or the inverted pyramid, you're not going to get aligned with your top people, and your growth would always be limited and restricted. That's the key to grow early in the organization. But it doesn't mean कि आप हाँ जी करो. It doesn't mean that. You have to be capable in terms of your skills, how exactly you would like to utilize them. But being aligned with the top management, being aligned with the leaders from different departments, what it means is how well you are able to contribute to them in their journey in terms of they being success. And if you are able to help other people in their success, trust me, people will also help you in your own success in the right way. So out here in terms of alignment, as I mentioned earlier, there are few advantages which I'll read out and I'll help you all understand because that's one of the important aspects from this particular chapter. So for low alignment, what are the consequences? Skills and mindset needed to achieve strategy are not available. So in such cases, companies are not able to grow in the right way, in the right direction. People are concerned with individual goals rather than organizational goals. The best example for this is you should watch any football match, any cricket match wherein India or other countries have lost. The moment the person who is playing, let's say cricket, person is there, let's say at 96 runs. So psychologically, that person will always look at scoring 100 runs. Similarly, somebody who would be closer to 50, he or she will always try to work that way. In football, somebody who is trying to chase the ball, somebody who is closer to the goalpost, he or she will always try to act in a selfish way. So that shows that the person is not aligned with the broader goals of the team, and that's where the problem arises. Wastage of resources, but obvious because you're losing time, you're losing money, you're losing efforts. Duplication of work and efforts because not all the teams are aligned, and this is where essentially all of us we keep talking about teamwork. But the flaw in teamwork is if you check, and this is an open challenge to all of you all. Okay, if you prove me wrong on this part, I'll treat you all wherever you want. Okay, when we say teamwork at company wide level or within the departments within the company, not everybody contributes equally. They never do that. Few people slog, others are piggybacking, others are enjoying somebody else's effort. So what you should do is you should, as a leader, as a L&D professional, wherever you see the gaps within the processes, you can align your department as an L&D department in terms of bringing about that positive change. That is one of the key takeaway out here. And this is the most easiest thing to identify. And that will also help in terms of generating more revenue depending on the process that we're talking, especially if it is with respect to sales, because in sales and marketing, there is high competition level between the peer level. So if you're able to see that people are working together, it will always help you. Many corrective actions, uncertain and ambiguous direction because everybody is working in different direction. Targets and goals of the organization will be missed because people are not unified, and that's the reason companies need to have a vision and mission. So if I have to ask you all, आपके individual company का vision statement क्या है मुझे बताओ. The way it is, not the meaning of it. What is your company's vision statement? What is your company's vision statement? Mission and vision. क्या आप लोग बता पाओगे? The way it is exactly.
I can tell.
Perfect. What about others? Purva.
विजन मालूम है, मिशन मिशन नहीं मालूम.
Perfect. So it's not to put you all in a spotlight, but what I'm trying to highlight out here is this, in my opinion, personal opinion, you should always do this activity. Maybe tomorrow or Monday, when you go to your department, put forth this particular idea to the top management in terms of your observation, your identification that people are not aligned with the company's goal mission. How? They don't know about it. And you try correlating how the performance is happening within most of the departments wherein you feel that the performance is not at par. Of course, you will have people who are super achievers, you have people who are on the lower side. So if you do this, run a particular program in terms of making people aware and aligned in terms of company's vision, mission, values, core values. And trust me, management would be happy if you're not going to spend more money out of it. You should always try and curb down the cost for such programs. Moving on, overall productivity would be low of people because again people are not aligned. And last point is motivation may suffer as employees do not see the link between their efforts and organizational direction. And one of the best example of this is in your company, you can see within the department, some people are very open. They interact with you all, they interact with other people. But some people are very aloof. वो आएंगे मुस्कुराएंगे भी नहीं. At times, if you say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, they might not respond back and they might be very in their own world. As if दुनिया भर का बोझ उनके सर पे है. So some people are not totally aligned, some people are aligned. So the more you are aligned to the business, to the team, to the vertical, it will always help you. Now let's understand what are the consequences, what are the benefits of being high alignment of HR with business strategy. Now, when I'm saying business strategy, it is at a company-wide level. And when we talk about HR alignment, it is in terms of what is the HR strategy to align with the business strategy. Business strategy would be in terms of, let's say, cutting down the cost, increasing revenues, expansion, maybe in the Indian market, global market, wherever you want to do that, increasing the brand value, increasing whatever your customer base is. All these would be part of your strategy. Advantages of high alignment: excellent teamwork and collaboration towards common goals. Now, have you all heard about Tuckman's model, Tuckman's group model,
No, not really.
Tuckman's group dynamics? नो सो
Please
व्हाट
tell
आई
us.
डू इज अभी मैं जस्ट एक रीड आउट कर लेता हूं, बट आगे चल के आई टेक ए सेपरेट सेशन अबाउट दैट. टकमन्स, okay, TUCKMN, Tuckmans, how groups are formed, and often it has lot of bearing in terms of how teams work. So there is something called as forming, there is something called as storming, there is something called as
Storming.
इसके बारे में पता है,
norming.
लेकिन इसका नाम नहीं पता था कि ये
हाँ.
Norming,
टकमन्स है.
performing.
अच्छा,
That is
I just
4 stages
performing,
of forming the group.
ये तो
perfect, perfect.
पता
So
है.
Performing and adjourning.
Yeah.
adjourning, exactly, the fifth level is the adjourning level.
क्या बात है
So this
फूफा.
is the best one in terms of alignment. तो इसका सीख ये है, every time there would be a new person joins a particular team, there would be little bit of storming that's going to happen at the initial phase, because existing people are going to get slightly annoyed because of maybe the competencies of the new person and vice versa. Eventually everybody should work properly, and that's when the real productivity would happen. But in real world ऐसा होता नहीं है. ये theoretical है to a greater extent, but from training perspective, if you want to align, you should always take such sessions for all your HODs, all your departments, wherein there are more number of people who join that particular team, and that would be your value addition. Because later on, when the person starts behaving in a certain way which is not appropriate behavior or attitudinal behavior, HOD will come back to you saying that ये हम लोग ने hire किया, but ये बंदा right fit नहीं लग रहा है हमको, इसको ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है. Let's see अगर वो प्रोविजन पीरियड क्लियर पाएगा या नहीं कर पाएगा. So that is one of the example with respect to having high alignment. And if people are not aligned, people focus on organizational goals and individual goals aligned to business. Again, this is opposite to what we discussed earlier in low alignment. Again, direction is clear and planned, targets and goals of the organization are achieved, overall productivity is high, and employees are motivated, engaged, and enthusiastic about business strategy. So just to give you a hint in terms of to clear this particular question in the exam, if at all it comes in the exam, बेस्ट है either remember low alignment के कारण क्या होता है या high alignment के कारण क्या होता है, and opposite will happen in the other one. So if you remember the points which happen in terms of low alignment, automatically you will be able to answer the question for high alignment. That's the key takeaway. Moving on, what is the role of now? Again, we are deep diving. Earlier we discussed what are the various roles within HR, how HR should be aligned with the business strategy. Now we are trying to understand within HR what is the role of training in creating that value chain concept. So as per the diagram which is given in the book, it's mentioned as employee learning, which is part of HR, but essentially it is everybody's responsibility. But because each one of us is having a certain L&D specific role within the company, others are going to look at us saying that ये आपका responsibility है. But it is a combined effort. It should be a combined effort from everybody's perspective. From HR L&D perspective, we are responsible for, let's say, induction, onboarding, hiring, obviously succession planning. But the key training that needs to happen in terms of technical development of that person, that will always happen within the department. So the head of that department, the custodian of that particular department will be responsible. Now the catch out here is they may not be doing adequate training within their department. And this is where we can bring in the alignment, being in learning and development or being in training and development. So if you feel a particular department is not performing well for various reasons, training could be one of the aspect. Try and track what all trainings they have provided to their team members. So if you're able to do that particular exercise, if you're able to provide some of the trainings, there might be a positive change if training has been the problem. If that's not the challenge, if that's not the problem, identify what are the other challenges within the department. Again, that's the second way in which you can align. And the best way for alignment, I told you all last time, is you need to develop your touch point with all the HODs. The other HOD might be, I shouldn't be using this word. I was so tempted to use this word, but I'm avoiding that. But whatever bad word you would like to give to the person, whoever the other HOD might be, the person or people might be in the company, you know them very well, right? Someone that you wouldn't like to go and talk to that person. And if you don't maintain that particular equation with such people, it's always a risky situation for us, especially being in HR and being in L&D. So there's a well-known global, you can say, quote, right? Keep your friends closer and enemies closest, right? So that's the
Closest.
best thing. So it always works. It doesn't mean again you have to do haji haji. What it means is you have to align yourself. You need to understand what are the pain points. The other day also I was mentioning the same thing. You try helping people where they need the help, and people, irrespective of how they are, they will be the ones who will always support you. So again, it talks about HR efforts. What is the HR outcome? This is the point which I was mentioning earlier when I spoke about various roles. HR outcome cannot be in terms of what I think, what my boss thinks. It has to be in terms of what is required for the business. And for that, we all need to be aligned with the business strategy. So when it comes to training, or when it comes to learning and development, the key parameter out here is KSA: knowledge, skill, and abilities, or attitude. My bad, attitude. You can develop a person in terms of knowledge, you can develop a person in terms of skill, but attitude, it's very difficult to change. Agree or disagree?
Yes, we
Agree.
can change, but it depends over the period of time, वैसे
Agree, but
situations
again
भी
the
देने
catch
होते
would
हैं,
be,
yeah.
agree,
Again,
again the catch
attitude
would
is
be whether the
different.
person wants to change or not.
Yeah, again, yeah.
Best
Attitude
example I'll
change.
give you. Best example I'll give you. You observe HODs in your company, the ones who are very ruthless in terms of the way they communicate. Definitely somebody or the other would be there in your department, in your whatever floor, bay, whatever it is. When
Yes,
these
yes.
people, when they talk to their juniors, team members, or people from other departments who are below their hierarchy or designation, they'll be very rude. But the moment the topmost person will be talking to these guys will act as puppies in front of them. They'll be very docile, they'll be very polite and all. So that's a behavior, that's an attitude. So the moment they start interacting with other people who are at junior level, it shows that's an intentional behavior. And the moment they're talking with people who can give them back, left, right, and center, तो उनका जो approach होगा, that would be very docile. It won't be hostile because they are thinking strategically. Again, that's the strategy. So what I'm trying to tell you all is you can change knowledge, you can change skill, attitude also can be changed. But the question is, do you really want to put in that much effort, time, money, and all the other resources? In most companies, companies are not concerned about this. So somebody who is not working at the workplace, company would still be happy to retain that person, put him in PIP, performance improvement plan, see for 2 3 months whether there is any change, and then they'll be happy to retain that person if the person is showing some improvement. But a person who is bad in terms of attitude, company would be very happy to throw that person out. So that is one of the key important thing. Again, this talks about alignment. How well you are able to align. The third point is business impact, organizational capabilities. So this is where again I've been reiterating the same thing. If you realize alignment, if you know there is a problem in the process, you should deep dive into it. If you don't have the resources, strategize, put it via other people who can help you in that particular thing. And the fourth point is competitive advantage in terms of business outcomes. Now, this is more in terms of once you run through the entire process, what the outcome could be. But for that outcome, you have to plan, you have to strategize. So, the shortest definition of strategy is plan of action. So, again, the image that I showed you earlier, what you see is fine, that is your operational part. But behind that, around that, business wise, resource wise, technology wise, what exactly you want to do, that's the strategy. कोडैक कंपनी का आपने नाम सुना होगा, राइट? कोडैक. All
Yeah,
of
paper,
us,
paper.
irrespective of our
Yes.
age, all of us at one point of time we would have been clicked by Kodak camera. Most of us, we would have been in that Kodak film, or what do we say, photo paper. A company that was so well established went out of the market because they lacked strategy. They had the business strategy, but they were not focusing on what's happening at competitive level. They were not having competitive advantage. Nokia. Do you know what was the earliest business of Nokia? How Nokia started?
They were into
Nokia was
steel business, I believe.
they were into paper manufacturing.
Paper manufacturing, correct.
Paper manufacturing. So just imagine a paper manufacturing company started that way, became a global leader in terms of technology product, phones back then, and then it went off the market. आप लोगों ने एक स्मार्टफोन यूज किया होगा ब्लैकबेरी का. Did you all use it? I still have one.
Yes.
People were crazy about it. The QWERTY keypad.
I used to
Again, they
hate
lack
BlackBerry. I
strategy.
don't know why.
Huh?
I used to hate BlackBerry. I don't know why. Because at
Uh,
that point of time, I was not working, and people who were, working, they used to show it off. So I used to get jealous, and I used to hate it. फिर
अंगूर
मैंने
खट्टे
नो
नहीं कड़वे जहरीले
नहीं
No,
नहीं नहीं
I
नहीं नहीं
think
फिर
no,
नहीं नहीं
BlackBerry.
Apple is
नहीं नहीं मुझे वो फेक मेरे को
BlackBerry got
ना
replaced by
वो
Apple.
लगता था, क्या बोलते हैं,
Yeah.
शो ऑफ लगता था. आई बॉट
true, true.
नोकिया का QWERTY कीपैड वाला फोन.
Agree, agree. But then BlackBerry was tagged in terms of being the pioneer back then. But then they were not able to
या
cope
या
up with the market. Moving on, what does
अभी
the
वो
training
जगह
and
एप्पल.
development professional need to do in terms of his or her strategy? Again, some of the pointers that I've already covered by explanation. The first point is develop powerful business mindset and transform the training and development function to be business savvy. Now, all these are theoretical contexts, okay? ये इसमें पढ़ने के लिए काफी अच्छा लगता है. In real world, it's very difficult to apply. So the best and the easiest way to apply is what is your KRA KPI? What is the business goal? What is the AOP for that particular year? And you work around that. So even if you go wrong, people will still be there to support you. काफी बार क्या होता है as training and development professionals, L&D professionals, we have a lot of high ego. What is ego? EGO, ego. What is ego?
ईड ईगो सुपर ईगो की बात कर रहे हो?
Sorry.
ईड ईगो सुपर ईगो की बात कर रहे हो?
Perfect.
Right.
Very nice. I have that book, one of the best books.
Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud. Yeah. But what is ego? What is ego? हिंदी में क्या बोलेंगे? मैं.
Ego is adult behavior,
Ghaman.
you know, about what is right and what is wrong, and you know.
maybe
Ghaman.
yeah,
Self
maybe in
Ghaman
ghaman.
बोलो.
layman's language,
मैं.
self-esteem,
Ego is
self-esteem,
मैं,
man.
something
Man.
similar.
Man.
self-importance. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, man.
Self-importance. So for
manifestation of the
L&D
self.
professionals, one of the occupational hazard is over the years when we train others, somewhere we try to think that we are the smartest of the entire lot within the company and otherwise. And that affects us because our ego has become so strong. So the best thing is always remember you need to align with other people. अगर बाकी लोग बोल रहे हैं कि ये direction में जाना है, if you know that direction is wrong, you highlight it to them that the direction is not the right one. The way you approach them matters a lot. The way you talk to them matters a lot. Still, if they want to go in that direction, then further it's your choice how you go ahead with it. But at least you'll be on the safer side. So the point out here is your strategy, the moment it changes, you cannot change yourself. You understand? टॉप मैनेजमेंट वाले बोलेंगे कल को कि पूर्वा आपको 10 लोगों को हायर करना है बाय द एंड ऑफ दिस मंथ. टुडे हैपेंस टू बी 14th of September. यू आर इन नो पोजीशन टू क्वेश्चन देम. Why they are doing that? Because of the strategy. If you're aware about that strategy, and if you break it down across month by month, what's happening within your company, the internal dynamics, market dynamics, to a greater extent as L&D professionals, we would be aligned and will be able to have the outcome, or at least will be prepared. Setback would be less on our part. One of the important point in terms of what training and development professionals can do in this particular booklet is gain an awareness of how technology is impacting the T&D function. This is where we can really bring in lot of productivity. The other day we were talking about chat GPT, we were talking about various portals, applications. So many things are there. Even in terms of training, there are many websites wherein free courses are there. When we started this group, all thanks to Kaushal, he started this particular group, he took the initiative. So during the initial days, I had posted a particular big post in terms of what are the various courses available on IIM portal, as well as other companies which are the LinkedIn, etc., etc. I don't know how many of you are logged in, but as and when you get these opportunities, the best thing is you flash it off in the company once you check it, once you have the details, because again it will reflect in your skill in terms of you're trying to make people aware about that. If people are undergoing that, you can always monitor that. So again, that's one of the strategy in terms of showing कि आप अपना काम कर रहे हो. It's very essential in my view. Moving on, what CEOs, line managers and employees expect from HR. Expectations कुछ भी हो सकती है, technically doesn't matter, but our expectations largely are going to be in and around the business strategy. That's the most important thing. Everything revolves around that. So what do CEOs want from HR? Essentially, इसमें काफी कुछ ज्ञान दिया है, but in the real world, they want someone who can do what they want us to do without questioning them. At times we have to do that way. At times we have to play smart. So जो book में दिया है, वो ये दिया है, what CEOs say, what they want from us. First point is acquiring, training, and retaining key talent. So what you should do is you should think in your company whether you have succession. Minal, do you have a question?
A question. I want you to go back. There is this the paper which someone has shared based on business strategy and HR. There's this question uh, that we need to write short notes. So one of the question was like you explained, value chain analysis. So what is expected there to write? Because these questions are for 10 to 20 marks. So just
I'll
what?
explain. Yeah. So value chain essentially is nothing but what is your HR strategy? Why it is termed as value chain in the entire hierarchy of HR? When we talk about HR as a vertical, how exactly we are going to bring in the addition in terms of value that we add to the business? Earlier in the olden days, 4 5 years back, people used to always say as HR strategy. But in the last 3 4 years time period, people are using this term because it's a slightly sophisticated term, a value chain. What essentially it means is, for example, let's say you are the CHRO, you're newly appointed into the role. आपके पहले जो भी CHRO रहा होगा या HR head रहा होगा, they would have implemented whatever they implemented in their tenure, in their time period. Now you being the new CHRO, what different you are going to do in your process, and you have to do something different and bring in the value, more value, add on the value. अभी आप वो उसको दिखाओगे कैसे? And that's how this particular concept came into picture in terms of value chain. Essentially ये जो term है, that was very common in terms of manufacturing setups, जहाँ पे supply chains होते थे ना, wherein they used to cut down the cost and they would try and add value into the process. So in terms of answering this question, most of these questions would be from a perspective of case study kind of a thing. You are appointed as a CHRO to a particular company. In the past, let's say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years time period, there was a lot of attrition. What essential strategy you are going to apply? What value chain approach you are going to have within the process to bring in that change? Something of that sort. तो आपको आंसर करते वक्त यही ध्यान में रखना है जो हम लोगों ने बातें की एचआर के व्हाट आर द वेरियस सबसेट्स, how each of the subset can add value into that particular process. So if you talk about talent acquisition, when we say talent acquisition, essentially it is about incurring more cost, because the talent acquisition में आप क्या करते हो, you hire people, you understand. But if the case is about bringing down the overall cost, so what you can answer is we upscale our existing people. So people who are there at a certain level, we bring in succession planning, we bring in training and development, we bring in talent development, we bring in career planning. Most companies lack career planning. Career planning means हम लोग, let's say all of us, we are new joiners, we join a company, induction hoga, but most companies, they don't tell their new joinees how they can scale up in the company in terms of their career, where they can see themselves 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So when you answer this kind of a question in terms of value chain, you'll have to answer on these lines. And again, for that, the key is you need to know what's happening now. And that's the reason I highlighted earlier, you focus on what is your current strategy. Strategy will always be for long term, but your AOP, that is annual operating plan, would be for that particular year, which falls from the topmost level till the juniormost level. So if you have global operations, global strategy would be formed, would be created. that will go to each country wherever you have offices. The head of that particular company in that particular country, who is the CEO of that country, he or she will get the annual operating plan, and that will go down the level to whatever level you want to send it to. I hope, Minil, I have answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Amit,
Yeah.
time check. It's 10:30. How much extra time we
So
are
I'll
going
take
to?
10 more times, 10 more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Fine with everyone? Because most of the pointers I have explained in terms of the conceptual part, I'll just touch upon जो key attributes दिए ना यहाँ पे. I'll touch upon those.
Sure. Yeah.
So that people are able to relate. Tracking and managing performance of employees. We discussed this earlier. Tracking in terms of how they are performing, and managing in terms of who is managing, who is responsible for managing it. It would be the HOD. What is our role in that? Every year, each company would be having PMS process, right? Doesn't matter which application you use. Are you focusing on the data that comes out of PMS process? I always focus on that data. So my strategy always is, I always tell the HODs, as and when the PMS would be completed, I want data of your team, who are the people who are not really performing well. So in terms of performance, you'll always have the high performers, mediocre, and the lowermost. So the lowermost cadre that you have, the ones who are not performing well, you take them into PIP process. अभी ये आपको strategy में बता रहा हूँ. You have to tell them, you have to talk to them this way. Ideally ये data उनके पास होता है, but वो देंगे नहीं. They'll always tell you take it from the HR. But this way, what happens? It helps you to create that touch point with the person. The person will appreciate you that okay, fine, you are focusing on their requirement. So that is one point. Communicating organizational vision and purpose. So for this, I told you earlier, have training programs. आपके कंपनी का डजंट मैटर 50 साल से विजन मिशन होगा, एवरी 1 year पीरियोडिकली यू नीड टू हैव अ रिफ्रेशर. भले आप सब लोगों को मत करो, पिक अप दी HODs, pick up few people, so that there is visibility of what work you are doing and people also understand. The way I asked you all, do you all remember your company's vision and mission? कल जाना ऑफिस में and just write out whatever training you have, ask the HODs. I just would like to know from you what is the company's vision and mission in a very playful manner. And trust me, people would be surprised, especially the ones who are very dedicated ones in the company. Doesn't matter how their behavior is, but they'll appreciate this. The next point is creating a positive organization, work oriented culture. Again, this explanation I have already given it to you all earlier. The Tuckman's model: forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. Every time a particular team has more number of people who are joining in, before those people join in, obviously you'll get to know that information from HR department. If you don't have that, sorry, if you don't have that data, create that touch point with HR, get that data from them. And what you should do is a strategic approach. You know probably when the joining dates would be. Go and talk to the HOD. Brief them about Tuckman's model. जैसा मैंने आप लोगों को brief कर दिया. There are 5 stages. ये मैं आपको क्यों बता रहा हूँ? Because usually when the new person would be joining in और ज़्यादा लोग join करेंगे, there would be some disruption in terms of the people who are currently working within your process. So just thought of highlighting this to you. We can certainly have a specific session. अभी वो बंदा बोलेगा नहीं चाहिए मुझे ऑलरेडी पता है. Fine, you did your job. I hope people are able to understand. So that is our strategy, how we can create that connect. Managing and rewarding high performers. So in the earlier discussion, nobody brought about this particular topic. Rewards and recognition. One of the most important thing, especially with respect to the current generation. Many people are looking at उनको कितना benefit मिलेगा. हम लोग पहले से बात करते थे what's in it for me, but the current generation they talk about if they don't get what they expect, they'll move out. So reward and recognition is one of the most important thing. There are many companies who are coming up with only portals, wherein through these portals you can offer a lot of goodies and benefits to your employees, which would be more like a leaderboard kind of a thing. Identifying and training future leadership talent. As we discussed earlier, you need to have succession planning. IT companies have something called as BCP, business continuity plan or planning. What it essentially means is, let's say you are there in your company, all the HODs, let's say they abscond tomorrow, कल को वो काम पे नहीं आ रहे, some competitor of your company hired them overnight. Is it possible? It's possible, right? They might serve their notice period fine, but अगर high talent सब चला जा रहा है, what exactly you are going to do? How will you are able to overcome that particular setback? So most IT companies or most companies wherein they have R&D departments or critical departments, they always do this exercise called as business continuity plan, which is part of the broader business strategy. हमारा वहां पे काम क्या है? आइडेंटिफाई करना हुआ दोज पीपल और उनको क्या क्या ट्रेनिंग लगेगा फ्रॉम ट्रेनिंग एंड डेवलपमेंट पर्सपेक्टिव. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज training and developing employees to take on responsibility for organizational goals and outcomes. Again, aligning with the business strategy, as I mentioned earlier, if you focus on creating modules in terms of career planning, if you focus on leadership development, if you focus on retaining them by decreasing the attrition, automatically it will always come in our favor. Our favor as an HR or L&D. आप कैसे करोगे? You'll have to see at what stage highest attrition is happening within your company. At junior level, it might happen. At mid level, it might happen. Higher level, probably come hoga as compared to these two levels. Check at what level, after what number of years, most people in your company are moving out. Maybe because there is gap in terms of salary, जो आपके यहाँ पे मिल रहा है for a manager, और जो बाहर market में उन लोगों को मिल रहा होगा. Do that exercise. You don't do on your own, but you propose that comp and benefit वो कर लेगा, but credit will go to you. और आपको क्रेडिट लेने के लिए आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? Ensure that you mark an email to all the key stakeholders so that everybody is aware you're taking that initiative. Next point, what do line managers want from HR? Now there is slight difference between line manager and CEO. Line managers mostly in terms of operational activities, nothing much. Employee engagement activities, positive work culture, for that we have so many activities. Managing troublesome employees and conflict management, again it's a very straightforward thing that we all can do. What do employees want from HR? Again, there is a table, what organization wants, what employees want. So we have to maintain that balance. At the end of the day, we have to focus on business needs. Business रहेगा, लोग रहेंगे तो हम रहेंगे. As simple as that. It's a very straightforward it's a very straightforward approach. Role of HR in meeting expectations. Now this is one of the last diagram. Talent training and talent development. Attract and retain talent, motivate and engage employees, create a value based culture, develop people capabilities, build employer brand. All of these pointers we have discussed, barring build employer brand. How you can do? You can build it externally, you can build internally. Internally in terms of the way I spoke earlier, in terms of vision mission board, you just order अपना chart paper मिलता है ना बड़ा वाला, the big size chart paper that you get, bring in few chart papers, form multiple groups. If you have a batch of let's say 20-25, form a group of 5 people, ask them what is your vision for your team. If you want to do it team wise, if you want to do as a group wise wherein there are mixed set of people, you can ask them what is the vision that you think for all of you all, each one of you all, or at a company wide level आप क्या चाहते हो कंपनी में होना चाहिए. So this way people would be more aligned, and that will help you to build employer brand internally. Externally, obviously, you'll have to focus on multiple portals like Glassdoor hua, LinkedIn hua. What are the various activities that you do within the company? Next point is traditional and emerging. It's a very straightforward. I'll take 2 minutes more and then we are done. What do traditional companies do? All of us, we have the answers. They are reactive, right? Traditional companies in the sense the ones who haven't really changed themselves in all these years. एकदम घिसा पिटा वही सेटअप अप्रोच है, wherein they would be reactive. जब कोई चीज होगी, that's when they'll try to work on it, while we need to be proactive, which is
Proactive.
perfect. So that's the latest one. Employee advocate, because in the olden days people used to only talk about employee aisa hai, employee वैसा है. Now it is more like a business partner. So you are managing the employee, you are managing the business, you are also representing your department, which is HR department. Task focus, that was the old approach. The emerging approach is task and enablement. Enablement, जैसे मैंने आपको example दिया, talk to HODs, what are their problems? You're not committing on solving those problems, but when you talk to them, in a way it will reflect that you are trying to be there with them. As against उनको ऐसा लगता है HR कब जागा होता है? फ्राइडे के दिन, फन फ्राइडेज के टाइम पे, फेस्टिवल के टाइम पे, कल्चरल डे के टाइम पे, दिवाली के टाइम पे, बाकी टाइम पे HR नहीं होता अवेलेबल. सो वैसा वो व्यू नहीं होना चाहिए. Traditional approach was qualitative measure, Emerging approach is strategic issues. This is where strategy comes. So the things which are happening, focus on those things. और उसके अलावा और क्या क्या किया जा सकता है. When you start thinking on those lines, you will be essentially having strategic approach. Stability is the old approach. Constant change or sustainability, that's the emerging approach. Functional integrity, as we discussed earlier. Multifunctional, that's the emerging one. Tactical was the older one. यानी कुछ अगर हो जाता है या होने वाला है तो उसको हम लोग कैसे देखेंगे. While the emerging one is strategic, because in strategy what will happen is if A thing happens, you have a probable solution. अगर A नहीं होगा, B हो जाता है, तो you will have a probable solution. जैसा मैंने आपको वो गाड़ी का एग्जांपल दिया, आपके पास पैसा बहुत है, कुछ भी ले सकते हो, right? But when you have limited resources, that's when you have to plan and strategize and think. Something similar. Last point is people as expenses, which is the most traditional approach. कॉस्ट बोलते थे पहले के जमाने में, अभी भी बोलते हैं, लेकिन अभी थोड़ा स्ट्रैटेजिकली लोग सुनाते हैं या सार्काज्म ज्यादा होता है. एंड द इमर्जिंग अप्रोच इज पीपल एज एसेट्स. सो दिस इज व्हाट द ओवरऑल करिकुलम टॉक्स अबाउट. और लास्ट टाइम जब सेशन हुआ था तो अनीता मैम ने शी टुक दैट वन केस, सो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू रिपीट दैट पर्टिकुलर केस बिकॉज इट्स द straight same thing. It's the same case actually. Bharat, do you have a question?
Yes, Amit, here is a point. In traditional approach, it was qualitative measures, and in emerging approach, it is quantitative measures. What are these?
So sometime back somebody answered HRIS, Human Resources Information System. If you backtrack 6-7 years back, even now most companies, they don't maintain the data. When I say maintain the data, it's not about only payroll data. You need to track actively what has been your attrition. I'll give you some metrics. If it is about attrition, let's say you have 100 people who are working within your company. Out of these 100 people who are there currently, last year from 1st of April 2022 until 31st of March 2023, 100 लोग कंपनी में काम कर रहे थे, बट 20 लोग थे जो कंपनी ज्वाइन करके छोड़ के जा चुके हैं. So your attrition has been around 20% approximately. So you try and analyze why those people are moving. In what tenure band they fall. Are they falling in terms of they joined, let's say, in a particular month, and in the next 2-3 months time period they moved out? Are these people who were long tenure employees? Company में 5-6 साल से थे और अभी छोड़ के चले गए. There would be a reason behind it. You identify that. I hope everybody is able to get it. Identify what has been their age group. So when you do this kind of analysis, it is more like a strategic one. तो यहाँ पे जो पॉइंट बोला है ट्रेडिशनल में क्वालिटेटिव मेजर्स, बिकॉज बैक इन द ओल्डन डेज पीपल यूज्ड टू फोकस ओनली ऑन द ब्रॉडर मैक्रो नंबर. 100 लोग छोड़ के चले गए, इतने लोग अभी हैं, अगले साल काम करने के लिए मुझे 150 लोग लगेंगे. बट व्हेन यू थिंक स्ट्रेटेजिकली, द क्वेश्चन वुड बी व्हाई 150 ओनली? Why not why 120? Why not more than 150? So if you are able to give those justifiable answers with some metric, your business will be happy with it. And that's the one which is mentioned in emerging, which is quantitative measure. Qualitative is generic.
Head count को quantify किया जा रहा है.
Exactly, numbers. So I'll tell you one activity, but this is slightly riskier. You don't have to do this, but you observe it for your understanding. As an employee, you would be aware कौन से डिपार्टमेंट में कितना काम होता है, कितने काम किए जाते हैं और कितने लोग हैं जो एक्चुअल में काम कर रहे हैं. So what I'm trying to say is, if you identify which are those teams which are oversized in manpower and the ones wherein it is under.
Okay.
If you do this exercise in your own domain along with your HR head, etc., it will add a lot of value, especially in terms of next year's budget approval, in terms of manpower planning or headcount planning. Because you will be able to show you move the resources. अगर कंपनी का खर्चा 100 रुपया हो रहा है, फाइन, अगले साल भी 100 रुपया होगा, लेकिन जिस डिपार्टमेंट में लोगों की जरूरत है वहां पे आप रिसोर्सेज मूव आउट करोगे. जहां पे ओवर साइज डिपार्टमेंट है इन टर्म्स ऑफ हेडकाउंट इज मोर, बट काम ज्यादा है, वहां से आप उनको कट कर सकते हो.
Right.
So that is one of the example for quantitative measure.
Thank you.
Now apart from this, वहां पे वो डेव अल्रिक का वो मॉडल दिया है. It's the same thing. I'm personally not a big fan of that person and the model, because I don't like such models. I'm just expressing myself because what I've always felt is all these models are on the basis of people who are using that concept on the basis of other people who have really put in their efforts. अभी कल को हम लोग भी अपना कुछ का खुद का कुछ मॉडल बना के पब्लिश कर सकते हैं, but that has no value in my own view. So just thought of sharing this with all of you all. Any questions?
Amit, this is Kaushal.
Yeah.
We have been assigned some homework, right? Some task to be submitted till Saturday.
Array.
Yes, and that is from
I think she said before
Yeah.
Friday, no?
before Friday we need to
By
submit it.
Saturday morning, the email has to reach her.
Yeah.
So
Saturday
again,
morning, whether it is Indian Standard Time or Singapore time, not mentioned.
so that
Saturday, 10
was
a.m.
that Saturday was
Saturday,
which
10 a.m.
Saturday?
This
16th wala
Saturday.
Saturday.
16.
This Saturday.
Yes, correct.
16.
तो
Kaushal,
कैसा
thanks. I had forgotten.
Same
No, right
here,
after
same
your
here.
session, no, I wanted to remind everyone to make the presentation.
That's from module 3, right?
Yes, on the 5 forces.
5 forces.
Oh,
So are there any questions? Are there any questions?
I think
think
question.
we
You
should
have a
take it
good
up
question.
tomorrow.
Your
We should
question
take it up tomorrow.
hurts.
Sorry?
no,
What do you say?
Nothing.
I'm
I
not
didn't
able to
say.
hear. Who's saying what?
I'm saying my name is Nandan here. I'm saying we should take it up tomorrow then, because I don't think so we will able to take it up today.
Yeah.
Now it would be too late. Now it would be too
Yes.
late. I honestly
Already.
haven't gone through what the assignment is.
Exactly.
Let's-
And then every end of every module we have 3 questions to cover. So if we cover these 3 questions, we'll cover the entire module if we do it like that. Because
Done.
running through every topic of every point, it would be really difficult to cover.
Nandan.
and I think so. What makes sense is that the questions need to be in relation to the concept. So the
Yes.
questions only, if you read, I'm really figuring it out कि answer
Yes,
किस
yes.
में है.
So अगर आप पहला मॉड्यूल देखेंगे ना, उसमें 3 questions हैं at the end, right? The first question is the HR manager often walks a tightrope between employees and management, right? And explain what is meant by the statement and what are some of the things that the HR needs to do
Balance
better, right? So if you see the index part and then refer to the question, you get the answer there. We should go to every sentence or everything, it's gonna take ages to complete
यार
it.
मेरे को फिर भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा इसका आंसर किधर है.
Okay. So let's do one thing. अभी discussion थोड़ा लंबा चलेगा. Let's do one thing. Nandan, can you do us a favor? Let's if you could volunteer this tomorrow. Let's catch up just for half an hour to discuss the assignment. Okay. And let's close it. कल अपने लेवल पे हम लोग थोड़ा सा पढ़ लें, समझ लें कि असाइनमेंट करना क्या exactly. Nandan, if you could guide us tomorrow, if you can take this responsibility.
I cannot commit why I'm saying this, because I'm traveling right now. I'm still traveling. That is one of the challenges which I'm facing. Traveling between Chandigarh and a lot of 2 more places.
Okay. If nobody does it, I'll have to do it. So if anybody else,
I'll try to do it. And then again, my request here is, her chapter के end पे we have 3 questions. If we cover these 3 questions, we cover the entire chapter.
Right.
And if
but
we run through every
right
point,
right now, let's focus on the Saturday activity which needs to be
understood.
See, I'll add one more point out here. Although after each and every chapter there are 2-3 questions,
right.
But in my view, if you restrict only your learning with respect to these 3 questions, it would be restricting your overall understanding. Because within the chapter there are so many topics. If God forbid जो question paper आएगा, जो last में question दिए अगर वो नहीं पूछे गए तो band बजेगी.
100% right. I agree with you.
All
but
the
what
topics are
happens
that
here,
way.
just to tell you what happens here, what my understanding is, your point of view is 100% correct. But we should leave something for us as well. अगर हम सब cover करेंगे ना, if you cover everything, entire thing, that would be a really tough task for you to do. And then again, कुछ हमें भी cover करना है. We should talk about the models, cover the models, and then move on to the next module. Because these people are running very fast. and we will not be able to catch up with them. हमने अगर 19 या 10 pages करें, we are talking about each and every word. What are the measures? What are P stand for? What A stands for? Then we are stuck. What I feel. Then we are stuck big time. I won't able to make it up. मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ, किसी और की नहीं कर रहा. Because I won't be able to relate it.
Okay, yeah. So
Also, Amit,
every
question, is it possible जो अभी sample questions बना हुआ हमारे पास आया है, right? I don't know who has put thanks, first for thanks a lot to put that to give a
But then
premise.
again, sorry
Sadaf,
to interrupt you, Sadaf.
I'm unable to hear
I-
you very clearly.
Nandan,
Please repeat.
let
Let's close
Sadaf
it.
finish. Sadaf,
Yeah.
what exactly you want to say? Let her finish and then we
So
can.
I agree 50% with Nandan. Yes, if you cover the question, you would be covering most of the part of the content, and we will try to match with the pace of all the professors that are here. Number one. Point number two.
Sadaf, sorry to interrupt. Your voice is not clear. Are you using phone to or earphone?
Yes,
to
I
speak?
am on my phone. Let me reconnect. Give me a moment. Nandan, you can carry on.
Yeah, all right.
Okay,
So I
yeah.
what I was saying
What we can do is we can spend about 15-20 minutes before we start the next session just to discuss these 3 questions so that we all understand how to frame the answer and what exactly are the concepts from the main chapter that we can take. So we'll get a good idea to develop just
What-
in case some other question comes up.
what I feel is
See,
Kaushal and Amit is doing the real study, and we people are running through it. वो पूरा कर रहे हैं cover entire thing, and what we are doing is we are discussing with them. So we should do study.
Yeah.
And then we should
Yeah.
come and then we should
So-
discuss.
Quickly,
The
I'll
objective-
add a pointer out here quickly, very quickly, because we are getting stretched.
Right.
The best approach would be I'll take the responsibility, but I won't give you the answers because it technically doesn't work that way. Whatever comes to your mind in terms of what the answer could be as per your understanding, your approach for the question of first chapter, especially the one that we discussed today. आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग के हिसाब से जो भी 3 क्वेश्चन है जो आपको लिखना है लिखो, सेंड मी द सॉफ्ट कॉपी, मेल इट टू मी. हमारे ग्रुप में I'll add my email ID, you mail it to me. I'll go through each and every person's answer for all the 3-4 questions of this chapter, and आगे भी ऐसा करते जाएंगे. I'll give you the feedback. That would be the fastest way, because the thing is we would be able to discuss that. अगर मैं या कौशल या कोई और आंसर देगा, it's not necessary that you'll align with it. At least this way what will happen is your thought process will come into that answer. और कहाँ पे क्या modification होना है, कैसा करना है, देखा जा सकता है.
Is amazing what you are doing. Let me just,
Excellent work.
from my point of view, what I feel, what you are doing is really amazing. Okay, but the challenge here is कि अगर we start covering each and every point ना, we would be stuck big time. कि कौन सा important.
Well,
I'm
Nandan,
modeled by Anita
well,
Malhotra ma'am as well. So
well,
to see
Nandan,
that,
you have given us
that
a
would be
food for
important.
thought. Well, Nandan, you've given us a food for thought. We must actually analyze our strategy. What we are
Exactly.
doing, we need to maintain a balance between, discussing the entire chapter and also discussing the question. How we can maintain that balance, we need to figure that out.
Right. And what
दोनों
all
जरूरी है.
questions
देखो दोनों जरूरी है. देखो कॉन्सेप्ट समझना जरूरी है ताकि हम आंसर अपने हिसाब से डिटेल में दे
here
सकें.
is you people are studying everything.
जिसके लिए ये सेशंस काम
That
आते
is
हैं.
perfect.
And
What
question
I
answers
feel
भी-
is कि I will personally connect with you as well. अगर मेरे को कुछ कहीं फंस रहा हूँ ना, I will call you up and ask you there itself कि भाई this is the question, you tell me what's your answer, simple as that. But if we start discussing each and every point and too many doubts, we will be stuck. First chapter पे ही फंसे रहेंगे. We won't be able to move to second module. और लोग आएंगे नहीं. लोग पता क्या करेंगे? After few video calls, they would be like, yeah, dude, this is getting too stressed out. I cannot join it. क्योंकि everyone is stuck at their point.
That's what brings me to my point is, I think there are very good since I think Ami is very good with strategy, Kaushal is very good with telling methodologies. So मेरा ये request रहेगा ना कि based on the questions, if possible, you can bring the questions for us. Okay, case studies and something that will build premise for us and increase automatically हमारा topics का clarity या फिर जो नंदन बोल रहे हैं वो clarity अपने आप आ जाएगा. So एक premise अभी premise नहीं पता क्या है, किस तरह के questions आएंगे, क्या case studies आएंगी.
You're doing very beautifully, what I feel. But again, this is the same thing on Sundays, isn't it? And then you are doing much better. What I feel you're doing much better because we can discuss. We cannot discuss on Sundays. But then again, what we are doing, we are stuck. Nothing more than that.
Okay,
Okay,
so we'll
to
have
नंदनी
we'll have
क्वेश्चन क्या मुझे इजाजत है थोड़ा सा कंप्लीट करने की मैं
oh yes please
बोलती हूँ
yes all ears all ears
because
all ears.
Sadaf, I'll give
everybody
you
is a speaker over
Sadaf,
here,
I'll
so I'm
give you
trying to be
21
less.
Sadaf, I'll be giving you 21 likely questions. जैसा हम लोग 10th standard में पढ़ते थे 21 likely questions. See, I mean, what approach you and Nandan are suggesting that can
ये
also work.
अप्रोच सब चाह रहे हैं हमें टू बी वेरी फ्रैंक सब ये चाह रहे हैं अप्रोच मैं वोकल आउट कर रही हूँ ये प्रमाइस देगा सब लोगों को और जैसा नंदन की मैं पार्शियल बातों से बिल्कुल एग्री करूँ थोड़ा सेल्फ स्टडी भी
Let it stretch today for 5 minutes. What you suggested right now, Amit, वो कि सब कुछ practically applicable नहीं है. So we
यार
cannot
आप लोग
study
मुझे बोलने
everything,
नहीं दे
right?
रहे
As you
बट
said,
नहीं,
ठीक
agree,
है
agree.
you
See,
can
see,
read it. You should go
I'll
through it.
make a point. 30 seconds. You'll understand what I'm saying. See, if your approach is only to know the answers for the questions which are given at the end of the chapter, that's very easy. But what I'm trying to tell you is, Kaushal, myself, all of us, we don't know what questions are to be asked, how it
Right.
would be asked. But if you
Right.
have the broader understanding of what's there in the chapter, like the chapter which I
Understood.
covered, जो कौशल ने उस दिन cover किए, we are
Perfect.
going at in-depth level, sweeping the entire chapter to a greater extent.
100%
जो
agree.
important चीजें हैं. Now उसमें क्या होगा पता है? We can always filter it out. So when we have a broader approach, उसमें से क्या चाहिए क्या नहीं चाहिए exceed कर सकते हैं, exclude कर सकते हैं. Sorry.
But Amit, what happens
Yeah.
here is कि not everyone is with you on that understanding. आपकी understanding है वो, but not everyone would align with that understanding.
Okay,
That's the
okay,
challenge.
okay. So thank you Nandan. Let Sadaf will speak right now and nobody utters a single word. Sadaf,
Thank you
finish.
so much. Thank you so much. बस मुझे यही कहना है इट्स एक्चुअली कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बोथ perhaps. You know, अमित जैसे अभी आपने बिजनेस स्ट्रेटेजी पढ़ाई I mean so to me a person who's directly related to L&D and less to HR वाला concept was an eye opening. ACP and AOP KR is of course पता है because इसको हम cater करते हैं therefore I wasn't aware. It was a wonderful session for me. But to build a premise to that, perhaps if you could have brought me a case study wherein human HR की strategy के हम pointers include करते that would have made me more understanding of the same. So instead of explaining it जैसे स्कूल में होता था chapter explain करो फिर bring a case study which involves a role of HR that gives me also on how to answer the question when the case study comes to me. So adult learning वाला kind of thing. So building a premise for me,
Okay.
right? इधर कैसा पड़ा हमारा
Now,
concept wonderfully. मैंने 2-3 लेक्चर ही सुने हैं but I am amazed. मुझे तो to be very frank मैंने सिद्धार्थ से ये पूछा था क्या कौशल अमित के ISTD से है क्या? You won't believe this. Because मैं जैसे ही एंटर किया था अमित अमित कौशल कौशल अमित अमित कौशल कौशल ऐसा हो रहा था.
So I'll answer that
Anyways.
point. What you are saying is right. So my approach, at least my approach, Kaushal, he'll explain his approach. My approach was for today's session was, I'll take you through this entire chapter. I'll be giving you case studies. If you realize, I spoke about some of the companies. Now, since you are asking in that way, I'm giving you the hint. I spoke about BlackBerry, I spoke about Nokia, I
I have
spoke
written
about Kodak.
those.
Yeah. So I'll be giving the case study. I already have it. The factor out here is we are having short of time. So मेरा understanding ये, I mean, the way I usually work is I'll give everything to the person, what the person requires. Survive करने के लिए, उसको develop होने के लिए, groom होने के लिए, that's my inherent approach that I do. तो मैंने ज्ञान बांटा, अभी उसमें से बंदे को जितना चाहिए उतना वो लेगा because I don't know किसको क्या चाहिए नहीं चाहिए. So if I myself have a selected approach, I feel it's unfair to everyone who probably might be looking for more. तो अगर आपको 10 चीजें चाहिए, मैं आपको 20 चीजें दे रहा हूँ. You pick those 10 things. रहा सवाल केस स्टडी का, I'll be sharing that. मैं ग्रुप में ऐड कर दूंगा डिटेल्स. You go through that and then we'll revisit that for sure.
Actually, जो हम आप लोगों से बोलना चाह रहे हैं वो टेक्निकली करना चाहिए हमारे प्रोफेसर्स. तो टू बी वेरी फ्रैंक हम वो डिमांड एक्चुअली अब ऐसा हो गया कि वो आप लोगों से हो रही है. So that's of course not done from our end. We should work on it first of all this. But secondly यही है, yes टर्म समझना है but again over the period of time हमें मार्क्स भी गेन करना है. तो वो एक पर्सपेक्टिव बहुत हाईलाइटेड रहता है दिमाग में. ठीक है. और जो मुझे ज्यादा समझ में आ गया लेकिन उस पर क्वेश्चन नहीं है. देयर इज अ बिग क्वेश्चन मार्क ऑन माय एंड कि क्या किया फिर. तो वो सेंस ऑफ अचीवमेंट तब आता है जब वो क्वेश्चन का एक आंसर मिल जाता है.
Done, done. So I guarantee
I
you'll
can,
get all the answers.
no, can I?
यस क्वेश्चन आई लाइक दैट जैसे स्कूल में करते थे ना बट अच्छा ये थोड़ा सा डिसिप्लिन लाता है.
Yeah, can I? So to respect everybody's viewpoint and to have a mixed approach. What we will do is, like from Monday to Thursday, we are doing this regular session. We talk in depth. Let's keep tomorrow half an hour to discuss answers. हम एक सेशन आंसर्स के लिए करते हैं, क्वेश्चन आंसर्स के लिए करते हैं और केस स्टडी के लिए करते हैं. ठीक है, तो ये भी करके देख लेते हैं. और प्रोबेबली नेक्स्ट वीक से ये अप्रोच भी एक बार ट्राई करके देख लेते हैं कि क्यों ना हम सिर्फ क्वेश्चंस को लें और उसके आंसर्स डिस्कस करें विद द हेल्प ऑफ अ केस स्टडी और एग्जांपल, एंड ट्राई टू सी कि क्या इन क्वेश्चंस के अंदर ही हम सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स को ला पाते हैं. और इससे क्या है, क्वेश्चन के आंसर भी मिल जाए और केस कॉन्सेप्ट भी क्लियर हो जाए. तो ये अप्रोच भी हम एक बार ट्राई करके देखते हैं. ठीक है. सो सदफ, सी वी स्टार्टेड दीज सेशंस this week only, thoroughly, मतलब proper करने के लिए. This was an experiment which we are still, trying to analyze. क्या अच्छा जा रहा है, क्या, कहाँ और improve किया जा सकता है. ये method भी try करेंगे definitely. So your point taken, Nandan's point taken. Let's try that. ठीक है.
तो
and on everybody's behalf, I would really extend my gratitude to you two people. And as I mentioned, मैं थोड़ा सा एक दो lectures में नहीं है. मैं directly सिद्धार्थ को डाला था, ये internal है क्या कोई. तो if that is so, if that's what we are looking, आपको एक ऐसे नजर दे, of course थोड़ी सी हमारी डिमांड बढ़ जाती है.
See, मैं हमेशा ये बोलता हूँ, इसमें हमारा भी कुछ स्वार्थ छिपा हुआ है. By doing this, we also are preparing ourselves. Otherwise, honestly, I can talk about myself. I'm not a person who's studious and disciplined. I need somebody to push me. So arranging this entire session is actually pushing you to push me.
So to be very frank, जब मैंने हाँ बोला था तो मेरा भी यही था, because when you teach something, you become a master of it.
Yeah.
Right? So वो मेरा भी थोड़ा सा ये वाला टेक्निक में भी, तो I'm also, but ये strategy वाला part थोड़ा Amit is much better, just a crown holder for that. Let you be, and for those things where you are there. Anyways, coming back, because it's getting late. So I'm glad that you put and respected our both Nandan and my takeaways or whatever we have mentioned. Thank you so much for it. And we really warm-filled gratitude and all thanks that we have this batch, and there are people who are volunteering themselves to coming up and solving. And it's not easy, guys. I completely understand to take up with the opinions of everybody and understand and listen. But trust me, ये कर लेंगे ना हम लोग, तो हम कहीं के भी किसी को भी ट्रेन कर सकते हैं.
No, this is thanks to everyone, especially Amit and Kaushal, what they've been doing.
Absolutely.
Because you've been leading, and then again, we're gonna touch base with you every time. That is going to happen as well. Every time. Yes.
Anytime.
कौशल, एक चीज पूछ रही थी, अभी हम जो 4 सब्जेक्ट्स हैं हमारे सेल्फ स्टडी सेशन में कितना कर चुके हैं कवर?
सो कॉग्निटिव में हम एक पूरा चैप्टर कवर कर चुके हैं, बिजनेस स्ट्रैटेजी में पूरा चैप्टर कवर कर चुके हैं, आईडी में भी पूरा चैप्टर कवर कर चुके हैं. हम एक चीज जो नहीं कर पाए वो था एक्सपीरियंशियल वाला, जो देश पांडे जी वाला सेशन है, वो करने के लिए कल हम कर सकते थे, लेकिन लुकिंग एट दी सैटरडे एक्टिविटी जो असाइनमेंट मिला है, उसको करने के लिए हम कल फिर से इकट्ठा हो रहे हैं. हालांकि वो शेड्यूल नहीं था, बट हम कल फिर से इकट्ठा हो रहे हैं आधे घंटे के लिए विद द असाइनमेंट वाला. नेक्स्ट वीक विल टेक अप द एक्सपीरियंशियल वाला पार्ट ऑल्सो.
तो इट मींस हमारे 3 सब्जेक्ट्स के फर्स्ट मॉड्यूल तीनों के कवर हो चुके हैं. तो हमारा जो एग्जाम्स है वो दिसंबर में है. एग्जाम
हमारा दिसंबर में होगा, अक्टूबर में असाइनमेंट का विंडो खुलेगा. ठीक है. सो व्हाट विल डू इज, अभी नेक्स्ट वीक से ना असाइनमेंट को फोकस करते हुए हम सेशंस करेंगे, सो दैट असाइनमेंट के लिए एटलीस्ट हम प्रिपेयर हो जाएं. करेक्ट. उसमें मेरे ख्याल से देखिए, जो मुझे लग रहा है 2 मॉड्यूल्स आएंगे असाइनमेंट में शुरुआत के फर्स्ट 2 मॉड्यूल्स.
क्योंकि ये चीज मैं इसलिए पूछ रहा हूँ, जैसे आज के जो हमारा सब्जेक्ट था बिजनेस स्ट्रेटेजी HRD, इसके 6 मॉड्यूल्स हैं. आई थिंक बाकी जो सब्जेक्ट्स हैं उनके भी इतने मॉड्यूल्स होंगे, 5 या 6.
हाँ बराबर.
वी कैन से कि एवरी वीक हमारा एक वीक लगेगा सबका एक मॉड्यूल कवर करने में. 6-7 वीक्स का कवर करने में.
इनका जो मुझे ऑब्जेक्टिव दिख रहा है, इस संडे तक सारे जो फैकल्टी है वो 3 मॉड्यूल्स कवर करने के फिराक में है. मैं आपको
half of the syllabus will be completed.
Anita ma'am is running the fastest.
And she is running the fastest. अच्छा, 10 बजे वाला सेशन भी फास्टेस्ट है. उन्होंने भी 3 चैप्टर. वो भी 3
Yes.
चैप्टर कर दिए।
उन्होंने 2 क्लासेस में कवर कर देंगे।
एक जो पेपर 4 है उसमें ना कुछ मैंने आज रिकॉर्डिंग्स देख रही थी एक्चुअली एक जगह किया हुआ है तो रिकॉर्डिंग कुछ अवेलेबल नहीं है तो या
हाँ,
फिर
एक
उसको
नहीं है,
डॉक्यूमेंट में डालना नहीं है।
नहीं है, नहीं, वो देश पांडे जी का फर्स्ट सेशन था, वो उसका
रिकॉर्ड नहीं
रिकॉर्डिंग
हो
रह
पाया,
गया है।
रिकॉर्ड नहीं हो पाया था वो।
ओके ठीक है।
लेकिन उससे रिलेटेड हमने एक सेशन किया था सदफ, जिसमें मैंने एक केस स्टडी, अच्छा कर्क पैट्रिक वाला मॉडल था वो, आपने देखा वो कर्क पैट्रिक वाला?
वो मैंने हाँ मॉडल मैंने देखा हुआ है बट इफ यू कुड टेल मी ये रिकॉर्डिंग्स के लिंक कहाँ पे है?
तो ड्राइव पे आप जाओगे ना,
हाँ
हमारा शेयर ड्राइव जो है, एक मिनट, अगर वो खुला है, हाँ ये खुला है, जस्ट होल्ड ऑन, मैं आपको दिखा भी देता हूँ, आई शेयर माय स्क्रीन।
also meanwhile guys let's get connected on LinkedIn as well networking।
लिंक्डइन में मैंने ग्रुप बनाया हुआ है, वो भी ग्रुप डिस्क्रिप्शन में है व्हाट्सएप के।
हाँ वो मैंने कर दिया है बट इंडिविजुअल भी कनेक्ट कर लेते हैं।
हाँ, तो वहां से हम एक दूसरे के प्रोफाइल में जाके वी कैन कनेक्ट। हाँ, तो
अरे नहीं
इफ
पापा दिक्कत हो जो एक्सेप्टेंस नहीं होता है इसलिए बोल रही हूँ ओपनली।
I think we should wrap up today.
Yeah,
What do you say,
नंदन
right? It's getting late.
या
नंदन आपने खाना नहीं खाया है क्या आज?
नंदन
अच्छा,
आप
just to
जॉगिंग,
add,
खाना खाया है,
tomorrow
मैंने एक्सरसाइज नहीं करी
tomorrow
आज,
shall we discuss
and
about the
then we
case?
have right.
बिजनेस स्ट्रेटेजी का जो केस दिया है, होमवर्क जो दिया है,
वही
वो
वही
कल
वही
डिस्कस
वही
वही
कल
करने
वही
वाले हैं।
करना है, वही करना है।
Right.
अरे यार, ये खुल नहीं रहा मेरे सिस्टम में।
पीपीटी उसी की बनानी है राइट?
सदफ सदफ आई विल शेयर विद यू, मैंने
Yes.
चैट बॉक्स में भी ड्राइव का कुछ कुछ भेजा है, आज सुबह भी
ठीक है
भेजा था, मैं आपको
ओके
सेपरेटली सारा भेज देता हूँ, ठीक है?
बस एक बार मैं सेव करके रख दूंगी तो एक बार मुझे अच्छा हो जाएगा।
आप एक काम करो ना, आप डिस्क्रिप्शन में देखिए शेयर ड्राइव का जो एक्सेस है उसको क्लिक करिए और आपको पेपर वाइज सब कुछ मिलेगा, पेपर
ठीक है
वाइज
उसी में
फोल्डर
है
बनाओ।
मतलब मेरे
हाँ,
देखने
उसी
के
के
मैं
अंदर
उसमें
सब
देख
कुछ है,
ठीक है।
उसी के अंदर रिकॉर्डिंग मैंने डाली है।
We are
Before we
meeting same
disperse,
time
I
tomorrow.
really appreciate that entire detailed approach, and I appreciate the speed at which you've covered all the content. So it was really good for me. It was really good because it was all aligned with HR. Otherwise, I would have seen HR as just another supporting function. So this was
Thank you so
all.
much, Preeti.
This was really good. This was good for me. Really good for me. Now I
Well,
can really approach any
For
question
everyone.
It's actually
whatsoever.
good.
Yes,
Lao
No
sir.
doubt
Ameet,
about it.
module 1 से question लाओ. अभी
so you,
अभी आंसर लिखेंगे.
I hope Preeti there is no doubt now.
बिल्कुल नहीं. फर्स्ट मॉड्यूल इतना डाउट वाला भाई साहब आए नहीं ना अपने. आई हैव अ डाउट. किधर है क्वेश्चन
I
मार्क?
was
किधर
waiting
है
for
वेकेशन?
I was waiting for that line that you'll say something.
मैंने
सबसे
इसीलिए
ज्यादा वही
प्रीति को
खींचता
प्रॉम्प्ट
है.
किया।
मेरे को तो
उसको
2 सेशन में तो ये भी लगा था कि क्योंकि वो बात करने तो मैम को सिद्धार्थ भी पहले मुझे लगा कि सिद्धार्थ भी एज अ मॉनिटर है क्या क्लास का वीडियो ऑन कैमरा ऑन
उसको
ऑन।
उसको
Actually
डे
मैं
वन से हमने मॉनिटर ही
आपका
बनाया हुआ है।
फर्स्ट
वो
क्लास
ब्रह्मास्त्र है.
you know initial stage में लाने वाला सिद्धार्थ ही है, तो we should thank him as well. Yes, so kudos to him as well. Everyone is
मैंने
doing
सीरियसली
it.
बोला था लेकिन उनको
Absolutely.
क्वेश्चन बैंक बनाने के लिए बोलिए. सो वी हैव अ लिस्ट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस जिससे हम लोग है ना मॉडरेट कर सकते हैं कि आर वी ऑन द राइट ट्रैक और इसका आंसर कहाँ पे आ सकता है.
वो
सो
ट्रैक
दैट
से
वाज ऑन
जारी
अ वेरी
करके ही आपने बताया
सीरियस.
था.
He is our representative for ISTD.
हाँ, अगर कर दे तो अच्छा है.
वो संडे के क्लासेस का मॉनिटर है वो।
टीचर्स फेवरेट जो होते हैं ना।
मेरे को लगता है फर्स्ट सेशन उसी ने रिकॉर्ड किया था शायद.
हाँ, फर्स्ट सेशन, बिल्कुल फर्स्ट सेशन उसने
बात नहीं
रिकॉर्ड
रिकॉर्ड किया.
भरोसा नहीं फैकल्टी से पर्सनली भी कनेक्ट करता हूँ आफ्टर सेशन. सर आपने बहुत अच्छा पढ़ाया.
तो आइस ब्रेकिंग
मेरा लाइफ
एक्टिविटी
सेट हो गया.
सिद्धार्थ इज द बेस्ट. We are suggesting that.
हाँ क्वेश्चंस के लिए तो आई थिंक सिद्धार्थ को मस्का मारिए. वो अगर बना दे.
नहीं, I think we already have too much of questions with us.
All right,
We
guys,
already
it's 10 minutes past 11.
let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
All right.
Night.
Great for your great help here.
Yeah.
And
Okay, good night. Bye, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
bye. Take care.
Shabak khair.